You're listening to The RealWealth Show with Kathy Fetke, the real estate investor's resource.
Owning rental property during these crazy times is a little scary for a lot of people because there's so many eviction moratoriums and uncertainty with people losing their jobs. So what we found is kind of a loophole with what is known as Section 8, where the government pays the rent. And today on the RealWealth Show, we have an expert who that's what they do. So I'm Kathy Fetke, and welcome to the RealWealth Show. Oops, should have turned that off. And with us today, I have Brock, and he has been doing this a while and is going to tell us how it's working out during these uncertain times. So Brock, welcome to the RealWealth Show.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here, especially when people are thinking, what do I invest in these days and where can I expect some kind of return? The idea of government paid rent sounds pretty good right now, as long as we have the faith in the U.S. government.
Yes.
But you've been doing this a while. Tell us how it works. It's called Section 8 in
Correct.
some cities. In Baltimore, where you are, it's called something else. Is that right?
So, yeah, they've tried to rebrand, but it's been a rebrand over the last couple of years. I think it started in certain sections, but Housing Choice Voucher Program is now the official name across most of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And really the biggest difference is Section 8 has been associated with projects and,
Mm-hmm.
Hey, here's an apartment building and here's where you're able to live, where the voucher program is not assigned to a house or a building. It's the person, hey, here's your housing assistance, and as long as the landlord is willing to take it, you can move wherever you want, as long as it's in with certain requirements.
And that was a really important change in the program, right? Because
Yes,
if everybody on government housing was in one area, well, also known as the projects, that of course came with a reputation, and with it tended to come a lot of crime. I know in the San Francisco Bay Area, we wouldn't go near those areas. We weren't welcome there. So I don't know at what point it changed where the idea was, hey, how about they get a voucher? Anyone in need of housing assistance gets a voucher and they can choose where they want to live, and that voucher applies to the rent in that area. Do you know when that change was made?
I don't specifically. I think it's kind of, there still are housing projects out there, and they're that kind of setup. But in our area, I think it's probably been probably 20 years, but it grows. So it's one of those things that started small, a special program, and then it kept growing, and now Baltimore County doesn't have any project buildings. It's all through the voucher program. That's just based off housing density and stuff like that. But what you're saying is right. A big push in our area has been the voucher programs allowing people that it's a low income program, so allowing low income families to not and be highly concentrated in certain areas. So the goal is assimilate into with the neighborhood where you're not surrounded by another all low-income households, opportunity for better schools, transportation and shopping, all that kind of good stuff. That's kind of on the tenant side or the participant side, that's the goal is, hey, go and live where you can. And there's going to be hopefully opportunity because you're not concentrated in certain pockets of town.
And also maybe not in one large building that
Correct.
Someone can live in a single family home and have a yard if they want to.
It really benefits. A lot of it's based off household size too.
Mm-hmm.
So the voucher sizes range from a 1-bedroom up to I think a 5 or a 6. I mean, there's more, but it gets pretty big. So yeah, if you have a family with 2, 3, 4 kids, your selections are pretty slim for an apartment building.
Right.
That's kind of where within the voucher thing, we've even said, okay, 1 and 2 unit vouchers, they're going to likely be in apartments, but people that have a larger family, there's not enough or supply of, single family homes, townhomes, et cetera, they're going to fit that household. So that's within the one niche of vouchers, we found another niche of that higher family size.
And do you happen to know how it works? Does the federal government pay each city based on need, or is it a statewide program? I mean, who's funding it?
So that's a really good question. So it is federally funded. So it's federally funded and administered by the the housing authority themselves. So I'm speaking for Maryland and surrounding areas. I'm pretty sure it's across the nation is that the state doesn't determine funds for that specific housing authority. So a big thing that's been talked about specifically in Maryland due to COVID is that the Maryland budget's going to need to be adjusted at some point. And that's not going to affect the voucher programs. That's all on the federal side. So there's a bit more protection there. And the counties or the housing authorities are always going to push to get money into the program to either for rent increases or to house more families. So they kind of operate themselves, which I think is a benefit, a little more independence.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So in March, of course, when this coronavirus was starting to really spread through the US and economies were starting to shut down, and then the eviction moratoriums came out, we freaked out at RealWealth, like, oh my gosh, what are our investors going to do? We didn't know at the time, so we gathered all the property managers together to come up with solutions. It actually turned out really well across the board, but at the time, we didn't know. And what came up as a topic of conversation is, well, I bet Section 8 is going to perform really well during these difficult times because the government pays it. Again, like I said, even just regular rents, collections were really high, surprisingly, through April, May, and June, and now July, because having a home to live in has moved to a whole new level of importance. That evicted, even if there's an eviction moratorium, eventually you get evicted if you don't pay when that's lifted. So people realize that they don't want to get kicked out, and they paid the rent. But still, Section 8 was even more of a certainty. So let's talk about how that works within your company for sure, because I think you guys are one of the biggest in this program in your area.
Yeah,
Baltimore,
that's correct. Yes. So we felt the same thing at the beginning too. Like as soon as the lockdown for Maryland was announced and everything was just moving so fast, we didn't know what collections were going to be for April and May. And we shut down mid-March, so March collections had already happened, and then it was really April, May, and June were a big concern, and we had not really been through something like that. I certainly have it on my professional side, and never knew about mortgage forgiveness or delays in payments. So we were going through all of this, and then
that's the exciting thing is this.
It's
never boring. You're always learning.
So it was. At first, we weren't sure what was going to happen, and we weren't sure how the housing authorities were going to be affected by it. And quickly, they did a good job of responding and saying, hey, payments for, and they were trying to figure out what was going on as well, but they confirmed early on, hey, April and May payments are not going to be affected. So we knew immediately that with the way our portfolio is set up, about 2/3 of our rent was going to be unaffected. So that was comforting.
Yeah.
So then it's focusing on that last third of rent. And the voucher participants, like our makeup, I don't know the details off the top of my head, but majority of our residents that are receiving housing assistance are employed. So some of them were affected the same way everyone else was affected with job loss or income loss or cut hours. So one of the things that has happened is that the housing authorities can do adjustments on tenants' income because that's how the portions are determined. So someone that may have been paying $1,000 a month out of their pocket and maybe unfortunately lost employment and has income reduced, they are able to go back to the housing authority and get an adjustment and reduce their portion from $1,000 to $500. And so it helps them out. And also we have more guaranteed money coming in. And I mean, at the end of the day, like there's you're good. At the end of the day, there's protect the housing authorities they don't want tenants to fall behind, and they know that they've done a good job of saying, hey, just like you said, like you need to keep paying, because if you don't pay, at some point you're going to get to a point you can't dig yourself out of a hole. So early on, we had residents reaching out, contacting us, hey, I might be a little bit late here, but they had us talking to them, and also had another person on the back end from the housing authority to kind of support them and walk them through their struggles. So it was comforting immediately with knowing that we were going to get collections. And then since then, yeah, it's been pretty straightforward, and had some really good communication with the residents that may be struggling but working to pay.
So how does it work? How does somebody get on the voucher program? What needs to be in place? I mean, I assume there's an income max that you can make in order to qualify.
Correct.
Yeah. So how does it work in your town, and is it pretty much across the board or different for each city?
I can't speak fully across. I can speak in general terms, so specifically for Baltimore, but in general, it's pretty much all income based. So, and there's certain deductions and information. So, if someone might make a steady income, but they'll deduct childcare and X, Y, Z, and determine, okay, that's like your real usable income.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost like a taxes. It's breaking down this. So it's 99% income based. There's some other factors to it, but there's so many applicants that the wait list in our area is closed, and in most areas is closed. And there's
Meaning that you can't even apply anymore?
Correct. Yes.
Wow.
So there's almost two levels. You've got wait list open just to apply to be on the wait list.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have a wait list that you sit on until your name is called, basically, and they work their way down, and someone might be on there for 3 years, and by the time they get to them, they're no longer in need. So some people are temporarily in need, and at that point in their life they needed it, but maybe things have changed. Other people have been on the wait list for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and that call is huge for them to finally get housing support. And we've had people that are living with family, with a couple kids, or in homeless shelters, or paying a significant money out of pocket. So issuing this housing assistance is just a huge weight off their shoulders. And so we're like, hey, come. Our homes are nice. Our management's professional. We'll treat you fair as long as the relationships, goes both ways. We're going to hold you to the same level that we hold a market rate tenant. So you have your obligations to fill, and that's good.
So a tenant somebody who's in need, maybe they are a single mom, maybe they just started a job, maybe they lost their job and they're in need of this assistance. They apply for it. Either there's an opening to apply or there's not. Right now, there's not, because there's so many applications already. And how many applications, I think you said?
It's like 15,000 or something like that.
Oh, there's 15,000 applications waiting.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So if you have a voucher, if you've been approved, that is a huge deal, right? So
correct.
I would think for a landlord, finding that person who made it that far and has the voucher, that's golden, to be able to find that tenant that has been approved, because I imagine there's quite a process for them to get approved in the first place.
Correct. And as soon as they get off the wait list, even then it's not instant, here's your housing voucher. There's certain checkpoints that they have to go through, and work requirements or attempted work requirements. So yeah, you're right. It's like a reward at the end of this whole process for the participant is, here's your housing voucher. And it's something that they've waited for or needed for a while, and they don't want it to disappear.
They don't want to lose it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gold. So it's gold for them, and it's gold for potentially the landlord who will be housing them. So would you say it leans more, I mean, you're working with these people on with these tenants for, you've been for many years. Is it mostly single mothers that would qualify, or is it veterans or disabled?
I probably can't answer that question.
Okay.
For fair housing.
Fair housing. Okay.
But generally, the statistics that I know is that it's like 60 to 70% families, about the same percentage working. And then there are veterans. We've housed so there's a couple of different programs. So there's the Veterans Housing Program. It's a big portion in our area. We've housed a handful, but a lot of those are 1 or 2 bedroom households, a bit smaller. But the
Okay.
ones we've worked with probably 5, 6, 7 voucher-based or veterans receiving vouchers. And that's a really great connection. I mean, obviously someone
Oh,
coming from the military
such a
is
great
probably,
service to be able to provide too.
yeah, and someone coming from the military knows how to keep things organized and put together.
Right. Probably a
So
great tenant.
yeah, I know there's
Mm.
one that comes to mind that they've been there for probably 5 years now. And anytime I've been to the house, I'm just like, it looks the same as when you moved in. So it's great.
That's wonderful. Okay, yeah, because I interviewed a woman on our show, I don't know, several months ago, and
Mhm.
her service to the world was providing housing to single moms, and that was her passion. And she went through the voucher program,
Yeah.
but it was just really gave her so much pride to be able to offer these clean, safe homes to these families. And I know that's what you do. So again, I feel like these people that make it through the list to get that voucher, that's gold. They now get to pick their home.
Yeah.
And it's based on, I mean, all the vouchers are a different amount, I imagine, depending on if that person works or doesn't work and so forth. But how do you compete with other people in that regard when, how do you compete with other landlords who would really like to be able to have that tenant?
Oh, that's a good question. The homes oftentimes speak for themselves. And then it's
Because
the
you do a
property.
really high-end renovation, right?
Yeah. So
Because I
not
imagine in the
almost.
past, I'm just guessing, and I don't know
Yeah.
this, I don't know the side of the business, but it seems like in the past, maybe it was people didn't invest that much in the lower income properties.
Mhm.
And I think you and I had talked about that. Maybe even really just didn't care about the tenant, didn't offer a quality product, didn't offer great service when something broke.
Yep.
But that seems to be changing, at least with your company. You're doing the opposite.
Yeah. I think that's one of our biggest differentiating factors is we've got quartz or granite countertops, central air, roof windows, hardwoods, like tile showers, just like stuff that is awesome and it looks really good. But when you look at the cost of construction or renovation on our end, it's a couple extra bucks all around, and it's just going to make it rent that much faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think the property management side, if you're working with a third party property manager, you want someone that knows the programs and has good rapport and with the tenants and with the programs. I mean, with today's social media and Google and reviews, it's not hard to see which property management companies don't do that.
Yeah. Everything's
and
pretty transparent these days.
and it goes down the line that
Yeah.
we'll get referrals from residents of, hey, my so and so just received their voucher and I want them to move in with you, or whatever person got it. And even, not that the housing authorities give direct relationships, but we're top of mind. So if there's someone that's looking, we might get a phone call from like the housing counselor saying, hey, what do you guys have? I have someone that needs some housing quickly. So it's a lot of it's relationship. And my biggest thing is that if you treat people well, they're gonna pay it back in dividends for the landlord. And like you said, like the woman that you talked to in the past, like, when someone gets their keys for the first time, like we've had like tears in the office, hugging in the office, like super excited. And hey, yeah, you got your voucher, you got your home, and it's like your dream home. And that, to me, beyond obviously the financial stuff, is awesome. So to see someone that excited to move into a home, this is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So it's that plus the stability with the financial stuff is what makes, I think, the whole program great for our company.
So what does it take to lose the voucher? I mean, what do they have to do to lose that status?
So the way it works is there's almost like a three-way relationship. You've got the tenant and the program. You have the tenant and the landlord in the program. So the landlord's right is to enforce the lease. So if they don't pay rent, file a failure to pay rent. If they don't follow whatever terms you have in your lease, that's, it's up to you to enforce it. And that's what the housing authorities will tell you. A participant can lose their voucher potentially, for eviction, for violation of lease. They can lose it for paperwork stuff too. If like they don't fill out their paperwork in time for their annual recertification, they're going to go up for review. That's like super rare that happens, but it's pushed. So, hey, you have to fill out your certification. If you don't, you're going to potentially lose your housing assistance. And then within like a day, it gets corrected. But really, it's violation of lease is like the biggest thing. And that includes having assigned residents in the property. So the housing authority knows how many people are supposed to be in the property. The landlord knows. So when housing does their annual inspection and, it's a 2-bedroom with 8 beds, then that'll get reported back. So that's one of those things that I hear often about the negative is like, you don't know who's living there. It's like, I feel like I almost know more who's living in our voucher-based properties because housing knows it. They're doing an inspection and I know it. And it's not worth the risk just to bring someone in.
So they don't want to lose these vouchers. So do they tend to comply with the rules?
Yeah. I would say the issues I have are the same, whether it's for market or voucher. On a rent collection side, when you have someone that hasn't paid $400 versus someone that hasn't paid $1,200 being a market rate tenant, it's easier to go to sleep at night and not worry about the $400 as opposed to, wow, this whole unit hasn't been paid for. And then from a maintaining of the home, I think from my experience, it's been about the same between market and voucher based. You do get extra set of eyes in the property each year or twice a year, depending on the housing authority for their Section 8 inspections. So to me, that's a benefit because someone else not related to my company is going in there. And if there's an issue I didn't hear about from the resident, then I'm going to find out about it pretty quickly. So I would say no more than a standard market rate family.
So if you do need to evict, does the housing authority help you with that? Or is it just, or let's say they lose their voucher and they can't pay and you need to evict them. Is it the same process that you would evict anybody or does the housing authority help?
In our area, you just would evict them like a usual market rate tenant. So basically the agreement, when a resident signs a lease, it says the rent is the full rent amount. It doesn't say, hey, your rent's $300. The rent is for the full property or for the full rent value. And then you sign a contract with housing basically saying this amount of money is going to come from us.
Got it.
And,
but the tenant's still on the hook.
Yeah. So if the tenant loses their assistance, it reverts back to the lease. So they're responsible for the full rent. Some people end up making payments. We have some families that like income work their way out of the program. Yeah. So they're not receiving assistance and they're making full payments. But then other people that may lose their voucher, they have to make those payments. And if they don't, you would handle it any other market rate tenant. Some areas have support for landlords. If someone is evicted that's on the program and there's considerable damage, I think there's some funds out there that would offset it. Baltimore itself doesn't have that at the moment. But our turnovers aren't any worse with a voucher base or a market rate household.
Interesting. We have property teams we work with nationwide, and almost all of them work with the Housing Voucher Program. And in some areas, you actually can get more money for the rental than market rate if it's going to a housing authority tenant. Is that the case for you guys?
Yeah.
Or is it pretty much market rate rents?
It's it fluctuates. Certain areas you might get more. So it's based off of tenant's ability, like tenant's income. There's some matrix that they use, and then also surrounding comps. So I can't take a 3-bedroom in a neighborhood that's renting for $1,000 and rent it for $2,000. Yeah. I would say on average we're a little bit above average on market rate for the area. Some are at, some are well above, and then other ones we run into where it's slightly below. But maybe the tenant has a really small portion, and it's okay. This resident has either no portion or up to $100, and I might be okay taking a rent cut, knowing that there's just peace of mind that it's not going to run into payment issues.
Maybe for a very long time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So because I know in some areas, investors bought a property, they rented it out on the housing voucher, and they were expecting higher rent than market rent. And then when that person left, the market rent was lower. They ended up putting it, and the cash flow wasn't as high as they expected. So one of the things I tell people is just make sure that when you're buying a property that it would work either way. That
I would agree.
Either way, that the numbers work. If it's on, that that there's a market for that property, regardless.
Yes,
right?
I always err on the side of caution. Whether it's, hey, instead of punching in 5% vacancy, I might punch in 6 on my own spreadsheet, or hey, I'm going to set aside this amount of money per month in maintenance, and if I'm not spending that, it's extra. So I would do the same thing with rent. Maybe voucher is $1,350, but if it works at $1,250 or $1,200, the extra $150 is awesome. So it definitely makes sense to be cautious. And it's the same for market rate too. You never know where the market's going to go. I mean, 3 months ago, we didn't know what the rental market was going to look like.
No, we did not. We every day is a new day. We still don't know totally, but our experience has been higher rent collections and more applications for rentals than ever.
Our applications are through the roof right now.
Yeah.
And it's been good. That was really worrisome too, because we had a bunch of properties becoming available right at that time, and we're like, what's going to happen? Had to make some adjustments on leasing showings and stuff like that, but it was really impressive that people were still looking to move.
Yeah, and it's shocking. In general, nationwide, there appears to be a real serious problem, a real serious shortage of affordable housing. And I'm not necessarily talking low income. I'm just talking housing that the average person in the area can afford. It's almost impossible to build it because building costs have gone up so much, and permit fees and the process. So doing what you're doing, what many of the teams in our network are doing, is buying existing property and making it feel like new.
Correct.
Because it's much cheaper than a new home would be, but it feels like new, especially to the tenant. And so are you experiencing that too, just a real shortage of available inventory for people looking?
Definitely, yeah. In our area, like you said, that you kind of have on the new construction, you've got two sides. You've got luxury apartment buildings that are popping up, and like you said, the building costs are so high that they throwing in the granite, or whatever they do, is going to bump them up $50 a unit, and that's how they justify that. And then you have the low income, very low income, which is all tax credit based. So the people that are in the middle, some receive vouchers and some are market rate. There's a shortage, and Baltimore specifically has a big concentration of housing. So all of our portfolio is probably within 45 minutes of each other. And there's available inventory for us to renovate and place a family in. And we don't have any vacancy issues, maybe once in a while, but it's really impressive the number of leads we get on a daily basis.
It's amazing. All right. Well, I'm excited that we can find out more about you guys and what, your product and everything. You're doing a webinar for RealWealth on Thursday. So anybody interested in that can go to realwealth.com, join, it's free. And then you'll get access to that webinar where you guys are going to show the detail of your renovation, which is gorgeous, very, very high end. The areas that have the highest demand, kind of what's going on in Baltimore. We'll get an update on that and just learn more about you. So anyone who wants to sign up, find out about available properties, you can do that at realwealth.com. And the webinar is this Thursday live, but then it'll be recorded and uploaded in case you missed it. So we're looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting out there. It won't be any day soon, but our team has gone out. Several people from our company have gone out, and they've been really impressed with what you guys are doing. To me, it's what motivates me to be able to really help families live in an environment that they love. It makes a huge difference in the way children grow up, the way their minds develop when they're in an environment that feels safe and happy. So
I have a really cool story that I'll share on Thursday. It's like my ultimate awesome story about this program and what we do. So I'll let you guys know that on Thursday. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again so much for being with us here and sharing your insight and wisdom. Look forward to more on Thursday. Again, you can sign up at realwealth.com. and we'll see you there. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.